Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Rebecca Nugent. Rebecca is the Stephen E. and Joyce Feinberg Professor of Statistics and Data Science, the department head for Carnegie Mellon Statistics and Data Science Department, and affiliated faculty member of the Block Center for Technology and Society. Rebecca received her PhD in statistics from the University of Washington. Prior to that, she received her BA in mathematics, statistics, and Spanish from Rice University, and her MS in statistics from Stanford University. She has won several national university teaching awards, including the American Statistical Association Waller Award for Innovation in Statistics Education, and serves as one of the co-editors of the Springer Text and Statistics. And she recently served on the National Academy of Sciences study on envisioning the data science discipline. So it's my pleasure to introduce Rebecca, and we're gonna have a fireside chat, talk a little bit about the state of AI, and continuing these conversations, especially in your corporations. All right, thanks, Rebecca. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, sure.
So I think, maybe the first question is, I think Bob just talked about having these conversations. He kind of referred to all the different terms, and, I think he was talking about all of the acronyms that are forming committees. But maybe if you could talk a little bit about, some of the things that we all hear, right? AI, ML, deep learning, data science, and sort of help us frame that, kind of put it into context. How are they similar? How are they related? How are they different? So I'll kind of lead off with that.
Yeah, sure. So good morning. I just, before we kick into all of these kind of acronyms and letters, et cetera, I just want to extend a very warm welcome to all of you to Carnegie Mellon, in particular here, the Tepper School of Business, coming into the Corporate Startup Lab, et cetera. There's a big podium right here, so I see you. You're kind of a little bit warped through here, but welcome to everyone. And I want to encourage everyone to not just spend some time here in the Corporate Startup Lab, as well as the Schwartz Center for Entrepreneurship, but also spend some time around campus. All of the different acronyms he just said, AI, CS, ML, data science, STAT, HCI, you name it, we've got it. And if it's not on this side of the street, it's on the other side of the street, yeah? So take a tour, reach out and kind of learn more about all the amazing things that we're doing here. So the question that he just asked is actually something that happens to us quite frequently. So one of the things that I do quite a lot of here at Carnegie Mellon is help build and develop professional workforce training programs. So we go and we work with different industries, startups, Fortune 100s, international, it doesn't matter. We work with absolutely everybody. But we do a lot of training programs and helping people figure out what are the different kinds of tools that they need in this space, and then what kinds of skill sets should different sets of employees have. And I get asked this question all the time. People literally, I've had CEOs of very large companies that I will not name pull me out in the hall and go, so like, what is this data science? Like, I know I need it, but like, I don't know what it is. And I said, no, no worries, no worries. So a lot of this is using terms kind of interchangeably when they do kind of mean slightly different things, but they overlap quite a bit. When we think about data science, all right, so I'm the Department of Statistics and Data Science at CMU. We think of it trying to solve real-world problems by extracting value from data. Now, that's a kind of a non-technical phrase, but that's actually what we're doing. And AI, machine learning, statistics, HCI, all of these things are actually tools inside that data science toolbox. So we think of data science as kind of organic, like workflow. You start with your problem statement, your business question, your research question, et cetera. You need to work with all of the domain experts and some of the data scientists and the AI folks to help kind of scope what your problem is. And then you start moving into like data engineering side. We're going to collect data. It's a hot mess. Everybody talks about big data. Oh my gosh, do you guys remember the phrase when all the data were big? Like it was all big, right? It was big, nonstop. So much data. You were going to see it. Your Sisyphus like boulder was just data, right? Crashing down, and we were going to collect it all. The real problems actually are not the size of the data, but it's actually the integration of the data sets. So, I get, and no joke, this has happened to me. I get handed like lots of kinds of data from different places. It's the integration of all these medium-sized data sets. We've got some in a database. We've got some in an Excel spreadsheet. I've got a floppy disk from 1982 that someone's like, you just got to get this. I've been handed things on napkins, and they were like, this is important. And I'm just going, okay. So all of this is data engineering, thinking about building the data storage, the databases, the infrastructure, pulling all of that together. That's a whole different skill set, but it's necessary because then we move into kind of thinking about the algorithms, the models, the relationships we're going to try to understand. And that's where you see a lot of the machine learning, the deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning algorithms, using algorithms and models to try to extract value from these very large data sets. And then at the end of that data science workflow, we are trying to get our ideas and our results out to our stakeholders and our customers. I can't even tell you how many industry partners we've worked with that have spent a fortune on building out their data lakes, their data swamps, their puddles, all their stuff. They try to get like so much AI, right? They have so much AI, they don't know what to do. And then at the end, their product is not adopted by the customers because they didn't understand what the stakeholders or what the customers actually wanted, right? They put way too much on the AI side, the data engineering side, and not enough on the customers, on the stakeholders, on the domain experts. So just kind of like adding on to what Bob was talking about, AI is going to be a people-first situation. We can do, because we're really good at the CS part of it. We're good at the robots. We're good at the algorithms. We're good at the apps. Across the street, I've got hundreds of undergrads in their basement right now. They haven't changed clothes in 3 weeks. They are coding apps left and right. What we're terrible at is thinking about how to put people first and foremost, right? How to train people. And that's really what we're going to be thinking about. Here at Carnegie Mellon, we're focusing quite a bit on human-centered AI. How to think about AI solving societal problems, how to think about AI and trying to leverage all of this wonderful technology, but really putting people first, putting people at the center of it. So I'm hopeful that that is also what you are thinking about, and happy to sort of take some more questions along in that area. Yeah.
Well, let's
this podium's kind of a thing. I'm going to do this.
Want to trade seats? Or?
No, I'm good, but this
Okay.
is like, your
All right.
faces are like... You know what I mean? It's one of those weird reflection things. I want to make sure I can see everybody. Yeah, okay.
Well, let's keep going with that about
sure.
people, right? So obviously a theme has been about having conversations. As Bob talked about, there's a lot of urgency right now from corporations. I think probably every CEO is getting asked by their board, what's your AI strategy, right? And in turn, it's the CEOs asking their team, hey, what's our AI strategy, or what are we going to be doing? So I guess, what advice would you give to folks in general, and also those folks having those conversations about setting realistic expectations, or what's feasible in the next 6 to 12 months, especially if we need to be doing something right now?
Right. So I would ask the C-level to think about the two different populations that you have inside of your enterprise. You have a group of people who are so excited about AI, machine learning, data science. They get up every day and they're just like, this is what I do. This is the future. I'm so jazzed, right? And everyone else thinks just like I do. Everyone else is super excited about AI just like me, and let's go to work. But there's billions of people on this planet who want really kind of nothing to do with this, or their expertise is in a different space, right? They're thinking about different kinds of roles. And some of the issues that we see with these innovation strategies that are focused on AI, machine learning, and data science is that there's no plan to have those groups speak to each other or to work together. So we think about hiring people with lots and lots of technical expertise, but we're not doing enough to think about how to train these two groups to speak to each other. And it's a bridge. It goes both ways. So our expectation should not be that it's only the people who don't work in this AI machine learning space that need to level up and get used to it. But that we also need to spend a lot of time with the more technology-focused groups, teaching them how to collaborate and work with the other groups. And so some of our most successful training programs have actually been doing that kind of thing. So thinking about AI literacy for everybody who's not working day-to-day in the AI space, that is a huge area of investment right now. I would highly recommend that. Think about it as like AI 101. Do you know what I mean? How do you even like talk about this? How can we think about automating something in our day-to-day routine that might be difficult, but we can, to the point of the 45 million hours, right? We can take that off somebody's plate. But we also, I'm a little off the cuff here. Sometimes we see a little bit of kind of an elitist attitude coming from that technology-focused side, that they sort of assume everyone else needs to learn what they're doing versus that they need to come over and spend more time with folks on the, I'm just calling it like the other side of the fence. I don't mean to be divisive at all here, but it's just more people are naturally selecting by their interests, and we need to spend a lot more time in the middle. One of the things that happens with data science in particular is we're very often asked on the education side of the house, I don't need so much the tech people. I can hire coders left and right. I need project managers. I need people who are able to understand the entire life cycle of what I talked about. I think if you can develop leaders in that space for AI and for data science, that's where you're going to see kind of the biggest benefit. The people who are able to understand all of the different pieces of the business and how can we scope a project in order to be successful for whatever your business goals are. I had one more thing I wanted to say there about. And what I also wanted to say was some of the big successes we've seen with our AI training programs is the best ideas come from the people who aren't on the AI side. I can't tell you how many times we see this. Imagine like I am working with a group. It's a cross-section of people across an enterprise. Maybe I'm in the life sciences. So I have people working in labs. I have people working in supply logistics. I have people who, no joke, are like organizing where the bins go in the cupboards. I mean, I have a marketing person. I have all sorts of things. And we say to them, think about your role and think about how data and AI might like what problems can we solve for you that take forever that we think we could maybe speed up or automate, we can use AI to help with. The ideas that they come up with, because they're doing it day to day, are things that the AI groups, the innovation groups, never even thought of. I mean, they're not like the super sexy ideas, right? And I love that job description idea. But if you saved somebody 45 million hours, I mean, think of all of the amazing things you could do. So really talk to all of the people in your enterprise and in your company and have them generate and brainstorm ideas. They understand the work in different ways than the innovation group. They understand, oh my goodness, I spent 4 hours today, right, working on this task that I just want to throw my computer out the window. Right? And then, but if you didn't know that, right? You didn't know there was a big win there if we got them a dashboard, right? Do you know what I mean? If we helped the interface. And now you've just saved them a lot of time. You've also improved employee morale. You've also made them feel important that they've contributed to the AI innovation, et cetera. It's a huge win across the board. So I'd spend a lot of time over in that space.
Great, thanks.
You are very far from me, but it is okay. We are far. It's all right.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out from a symmetry standpoint. Should
I know,
sit
like,
over
should we
there,
do here?
right?
And then we could get like a can with a string, right, that goes in between. Yeah.
So I think
that's like a hula hoop reference, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and my husband and I make jokes about, cans with string, and they're like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, what are you? We haven't seen that on TikTok, and I'm like, oh, God.
Although Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, they had that, so for those who watch that show.
There you go, yeah.
So in terms of, I think you talked about some of the possibilities, capabilities, but what are the unrealistic expectations? What are the stumbling blocks? Or as we kind of discussed last night at the sort of speakers dinner, what's really pissing you off right now in this area? And
I thought that was a leading aggressive question when I got asked that last night, but I felt good about it. I honestly, I think what is... I don't know if it's pissing me off, but I think what I see is the most challenging is the rush to adopt without thinking through what it means for your employees and your customers. I'm I'm not necessarily countering the earlier points about like you need to start getting moving on this. You people do need to start moving on this. And I think later this afternoon you're going to hear from Sean Ammirati talking about how Gen AI in particular could be used for innovation, et cetera. But I would be people. I see an awful lot of what I would refer to as kind of rash, impulsive behavior associated with some of the use of some of these tools. So, for example, working with a partner in finance, I work with employees who get really excited about some code package they found online. And they're like, and I found it. And it runs. And they sort of like, they confuse the code ran with like the results are right. Do you know what I mean? Like I can write code that will give you the worst results ever. It's actually not that hard, right? So you just like, pull random numbers out of a hat. But there's sort of this excitement without fully understanding what's being used. And so I think that we need from like a leadership level, so the leadership level needs to push down. We want you to use all of these tools, but we want you to understand what you're using. It needs to be relatable. It needs to be explainable. And so so that's more, I wouldn't say pissing off. I would say I see a lot of rush to use things without fully understanding them. And so it would be more of a cautionary. I think I would be more cautious there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Maybe shifting gears a little bit, you've always been a big proponent of, data science belongs to everyone, making it accessible. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, kind of with all the advances that you've seen with Gen AI the past year, has that kind of moved us forward on making all of this more accessible, or has it maybe set us back a little bit because now you've introduced all these new terms, the LLMs, vectors, tokens. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know that's very important to you.
Yeah. So I don't know how many of you are in education, but right when Gen AI kind of first started coming out, right, there was this drama gasp and everyone's going to cheat. They're all going to write their essays. I'll tell you right now, you can tell a Gen AI written essay in about 2 seconds. Everybody sounds like they're from Wikipedia. It's this kind of thing. We've been having a lot of conversations about it over here, and I think one of the best analogies that I've heard so far is when calculators came out. I don't know if anyone here remembers when calculators first sort of hit like the classroom. Do you know what I mean? Like that, not just that they had these TI-85s, but just everyone could get a calculator. There was an awful lot of stress about like math education is dead. Like no one will know how to do 10 plus 5. Like our kids are doomed, right? Like the apocalypse is nigh, that kind of thing. There was actually an incredible amount of stress when calculators came out, which is a little bit comical now to think about it because, right, we use calculators all the time now and math is doing fine. Because what really happened was a transition period of, okay, we have calculators now, but we now need to rethink how we learn math. What are the important facts for people to know? I can tell you right now, my kids are still having to memorize all sorts of stuff. It's not like we've stopped that. But it's a tool. Calculators became a tool in our toolbox, right, that we can use and we can adopt. We a bunch of, sort of in the education side of the house, we think Gen AI is actually, we're in that phase as well. So we're like, oh my gosh, what is this? It's going to replace human brains. Like we're all going to be, it's what's going to happen to us. But we actually think it'll evolve and develop more into a tool that we have that we can use when it's appropriate, right? That we can spend more of our complex, brain power on other kinds of tasks. And the Gen AI will be kind of backing us up, so to speak. I think using something like Gen AI for those job descriptions examples, I've also seen it used really well in things like if every new product requires 100 pages of regulatory documents, they're very well structured, right? You know exactly what kind of templates you need. You can develop prompts and such that will help you build those things. Those seem like easy, low-hanging fruit for Gen AI. But I think it's gonna turn into humans focusing more on problem solving and thinking about how to scope an actual problem. So it's all about those prompts, right? So if you think about using Gen AI for innovation, and I don't want to, I know Sean's going to cover this, so I don't want to spend too much time here, but
that's great. You're going before him.
Oh, I'm going before him. All right, so there's Sean. So there, okay. But I think, it's only going to be as good as we are at using it, right? Like, for example, we just did a funny thing this week where I asked the department, all right, send us your best Halloween statistics and data science jokes. And a couple of people threw stuff into Chat GPT. And one of them was like, why did the statistician go trick-or-treating with the normal distribution? Because he wanted to find the mean sweets. Yeah, it's not even that, it's not funny, right? It's awful, right? It's like an awful joke. Like, why would anyone want mean candy? And like, why would anyone even want average candy, right? Like, clearly we want the best candy. So, but the prompt was terrible is my point. I may be a little silly right now, but the prompt was terrible, right? They just were like, statistics Halloween joke, and this is the nonsense, right, that ChatGPT gave us back. But if we could think about how to sit back before you even use some of these Gen AI tools and focus on defining a problem, scoping out these different tasks, the challenges, right, like what we need, and thinking about how to use that extremely well-defined set of prompts and problem scoping, and use Gen AI as a tool to help you innovate, to help you prototype, do those kinds of things. That's where I think it's going to be the win. Doing lazy use of Gen AI, get me a stat Halloween joke, is going to give you, not funny, not good stuff back, right? So I think it's going to be, how do we train people to think through problems in order to use these tools? And the tools will improve. I'll add it, so I know you have other questions, but I do want to add, one of the biggest things that we warn people about building models and algorithms is when you put in we use historical data to train those models. We use what happened in the past, that's what we have data on. We build models, it's going to predict things that are very similar to what happened in the past. That's just a standard, right? That's the way it goes. It's all, But if you want things to change, or if you have like an innovation idea in mind or new principles, or you want to change what's happening at your startup or your enterprise, you need to incorporate that kind of information and not just rely on the historical things. That will be necessary for Gen AI and other sorts of tools that are using data and language and pieces of text that have already been written from the past. We're going to have the same problem. It's just going to spit out things, right, that are very similar, until we learn how, we get it to sort of figure out how we can almost put innovation into those things, right? We can learn how to use them better. So I would be cautious right now, but I think we have some exciting things ahead of us. And then it'll just be like the new calculator, right? Like in 20, 30 years, we'll just have like another calculator, and it'll be our Gen AI calculator.
Note to self, I have to change my jokes for the closing remarks. So. All right.
Well, I can send you some other ones that were done by ChatGPT. They were awful.
I've got two more questions.
Yeah,
I'm going to do them rapid fire because I want to leave maybe about 10 minutes or so for Q&A from the audience. So also this gives you a chance to start thinking about questions. So first question, or wanted you to talk about, when we were chatting, you were talking about, you talk a lot about this AI, you're asked to speak, and you recently were in Germany giving a talk, and one thing you noticed was that the conversation around AI was a little different than what had been at previous conferences or talks. So maybe just talk a little bit about that, because I think it gives the audience an inkling to maybe where this conversation's going.
Yeah, certainly. So thank you for bringing that up. So the conference that he's referring to, so the state of Pennsylvania has a sister state relationship with the NRW region in Germany. And so that's the region that it's more of kind of the industrial manufacturing region of Germany. So that's like the Dusseldorf and the Dortmund, like that kind of area. And they were doing kind of a digital AI Dortmund week. And they've sent leaders over here, and we sent a group from Pennsylvania over there for this event in September. What was interesting to hear is they're spending a lot of time thinking about AI and sustainability. Not to say that we're not in the United States, but they are focusing on it far more. They're heading toward regulations. They're doing an awful lot of research studies on kind of what happens from a sustainability perspective with the environment, with the creation of different pieces of technology, and they're researching it. So they're turning out all kinds of publications and recommendations related to how long should you be using a new piece of technology before it's time to switch to the next one, but looking at it from a lens of what kind of impact we're having on our planet and what we're having on our Earth, et cetera. And they're moving into a regulatory space. So I think it would be important for us to start thinking about that in case that's an area that we need to be considering as well. So, we around here, we turn over, iPhones every like couple of years, but that's actually, we're supposed to, I forget the exact research study, so forgive me, but just anecdotally, they were talking about doing things like we should be using a phone for 10 years before we should be changing it over to something else. And, and of course, we're all like, 10 years, what? Like, I got camera pics to take, right? These cameras are getting better and better. But they're doing research on all of these things we're building in the AI space. What's the impact? And it's not just on the environment and sustainability, it's on people, the resources that we're using, et cetera. What's the cost going to be in the long run? And that was the first conference that I had been to where that was a dominant topic. So we've been kind of bringing that back a little bit and thinking about what, how we can incorporate some of that here as well.
Okay, thanks. And then last thing, it was tempting to just talk about sports this whole time, but
yeah, we do a lot of sports.
Yeah. So next week you're hosting a sports analytics conference. Maybe talk a little bit about that, and if there's an example from the sports industry, use of AI that you want to share, feel free to. But definitely, talk about the conference.
Yeah, sure. So Carnegie Mellon is very active in sports analytics. We have placed people all over. We have a huge sports analytics initiative. We run like a national network for sports kind of education. And we work with lots of professional teams. We also work with a lot of companies that are related to that space. So think about people who are making the tracking chips, right, that are going in for example, in a football, right? A football has a chip in it. All of the uniforms and practice gear have chips. And I mean, everybody's chipped. It's just chipped left and right. So we do a lot of things with the tracking data. Our work tends to focus more on performance, so not the sports management side. We tend to be looking for those W's. How can we help teams draft? How can we help teams recover from injuries faster? How can we optimize their performance of their players, et cetera? So one of the things we do, we have an annual sports analytics conference. It is next week. We are looking for additional space. It is massive. People are coming from all over. But the kinds of ways that we see AI being used in professional sports, there's a lot to do with the tracking data. That's a big thing right now. But there's really interesting things on trying to think about how to optimize where people should be. So imagine if you were watching a soccer game and you see ghost players of your players also on the screen, and they've they're running the optimal game next to what actually happened. So imagine you're watching game film, right? You're seeing what happened, and you're like, oh, look, if my player had just moved 4 yards up, right, it would have been a more optimal play, et cetera. So watching game film, looking back and being like, oh, here's what I did. I'm also watching the optimal thing that I should have done that would have, led to a higher percentage or a higher probability of scoring, et cetera. So those kinds of things are really done. So I'll tell you just a really funny story about why people are so important. We developed that here at Carnegie Mellon, that kind of ghost tracking, that ghost optimization, and we saw it on soccer film all the time. And so then they started, when they were testing the algorithm, they went to the Carnegie Mellon basketball practices and games to just watch basketball film, just to get film and figure out if we could run it on basketball games. And it worked really well. We were able to track where the basketball players went, where they should have gone, that type of thing. Then they took it down to, are you guys familiar with it's the ESPN High School Showcase that happens down in Florida? So it's like high school players go down, they get an invitation, and then they get to sort of play, and all the scouts come down, and all kinds of people come down. So we tried to run the same algorithm on those high school players, and that did not work at all. And can anybody think about why that was an immense failure? Well, the Carnegie Mellon team was playing as a team, right? And the high school players were like, I'm going to dunk any chance I get. All the scouts are watching me. I'm not passing to anybody, right? I'm going to. So it was a funny example of we really need to be thinking about the people and the goals and et cetera, so that we can adjust our algorithms. The other thing, if you don't mind me sort of jumping in, we have I'm switching topics. Happy to answer questions about sports analytics and more. We'd love to have all of you come next weekend. We also have a brand new AI Institute here at Carnegie Mellon. It's called the Carnegie Mellon AI Institute for Societal Decision Making. So AI-SDM. This is a $20 million NSF-funded initiative that just started this past spring. And it is very much focusing on what I was talking about in the beginning, which is human-centered AI. So how can we use AI to help people make decisions, think about people's behavior? How can we nudge them in the right direction and help support them? And our major use cases that we work on are in public health and healthcare, and also in disaster management. So you can imagine an earthquake happens, you have a certain amount of resources that need to be allocated like that. We're in a crisis situation. How do we help use AI to help all of these disaster managers make decisions, try to figure out what's going on? You're doing it in a high-stress situation, right? That sort of thing. And that's something that we're really proud of. That's a multi-college institute that we'd love to. We're working with all kinds of external partners in industry as well as nonprofit, government as well. It's a far-reaching institute. And if you think that you would like to learn some more about what we're doing, or you think you might be a good partner for that, I want to point out Norm. Norm, are you still here? Okay, then I would like to point out me. Okay, so Norm Gottrin was here. He was in the back, but I know he was dropping in and out based on his meeting schedule. So his name, again, is Norm Gottrin, Gottron. He is the managing director of that institute. But you're more than welcome to contact myself, Rebecca Nugent, if you're interested in learning more about that. Or you can just Google CMU AI SDM, and you'll get the whole website and everything. So I wanted to let you know that was happening as well. It might be a really good fit for some of your programs, your companies.
I think we have time for a few questions, so if anyone has questions. Yeah.
Is this working? Can you hear me? Okay. So not a question, just really a comment. So I read an article just about a day ago that talked about the acceleration of AI, and at the end of it, it talked about how some people were intimidated by it, and that you know, it could be the end of humanity, right? Kind of spooky. But so I really appreciated when you talked about this idea of having the people in AI talk to the people who are not. Because as I was sitting here and as Bob was talking, I was thinking, how do you sort of change? It's a cultural shift for companies to kind of embrace this thing, because there are going to be those who are intimidated by it. So I really appreciated that comment, and even the thing with the calculator, because I have kids too, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to ruin their brains. But no, I really you know, just kind of appreciated those comments, because on the business side, you can think about how it can definitely accelerate and fill gaps that we have as organizations, but at the same time, there's that unknown that can be intimidating. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say, I think we won't be able to fully leverage the power of AI until people are comfortable with AI. I mean, that's just the truth. And we want to change. Sometimes people they talk about being intimidated, but it's really just almost like a lack of information, right? Like the unknown is scary. Yeah, and so when you see things like Skynet and the Terminator, right, is coming, and robots are going to take your jobs, and we're all, again, the apocalypse is nigh. But really, it's about understanding that AI is a tool that's here to help us. It's here to help us. It's to help us. You know, we are, honestly, we're still the best AI on the planet. You know, humans are able to make complex decisions in ways that it will always be very difficult for machinery to do. We're able to kind of incorporate all kinds of different contexts. And while machines will get better at it, we're still vital. But wouldn't it be better if we spent our time on those kind of nuanced, complex problems, and we made things a little bit easier for everybody by taking some of this like more rote or kind of low-hanging fruit? Like the once we learn how to add, let the calculators do 10 plus 5, right? And we're gonna be doing sort of more complex things. So yeah, when I'm on planes and when you sit next to the person and they're like, you're kind of having that moment of like, do we talk to each other, or do we put our like pods in, right? Like, do I like you? Do I not like you? You know, that thing. And when they ask like, oh, what do you do? I mean, depending on what I'm feeling about them, I tell them, oh, I'm a statistics data science professor. And then they're like, God, I cheated on every statistics exam in college. And I'm like, that doesn't make us more friends, right? Like that doesn't. But the point is that is the response of a lot of people. They are very nervous in this space. And the more that we can build bridges, the more that we can connect to society, connect to people, and that will help us leverage AI to its fullest. That's what I'm most excited about. That's what I get up every day in the morning to work on. So yeah, thank you for your comment.
Maybe
I have a
time for one-
question. Is that okay? May I?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So I wanted to follow up. I'm with Gretchen Jeserg with Riester GmbH. So we're actually based in Germany in the medical devices and services field. And I was very interested in your comments about the conference you attended there and a little different approach. I was wondering whether the overall environmental impact of AI and generative AI came up in terms of, we don't hear about it a lot, but the fact is that there are pretty massive server farms out there that have to be run and kept cool. And, there are some statistics around the environmental impact of that, around the energy used and climate change, et cetera. I was curious if they discussed that and if there were any solutions or approaches that were brought up.
Right. So this is, thank you. This is exactly why I'm bringing it up, because it's so easy to get very excited about all the things we can do and then not think about the cost, right? The cost or the impact, the training that's necessary, the impact in other ways. So that actually was discussed. They didn't go into actionable recommendations related to server farms in particular, but this concept of needing to assess and quantify somehow the impact of each of these kind of like AI products or generative AI, or if you're building an app, if you're building whatever it is that you're building in the AI space. And they were starting to push the idea of having scores. Sort of, how like when you buy like a washing machine, there's kind of like a score that goes along with it. So those ideas are trickling into the AI space as well. So you can imagine that you put out something and it's got like a little label somehow that does some kind of summary of the impact. I would not be surprised if that conversation grows kind of around industry about having some kind of label. I think we're in super early stages on that, but that conversation is happening. So maybe something just to kind of be thinking about as you're moving in that space. Yeah.
Well, sorry, one more question.
You talked about what pissed you off, and you at one point said the CEOs need to jam down some of this.
Yes.
Have you seen any evidence that corporations and CEOs being the champion have changed their strategic plans and their mission and vision statements to reflect the AI innovation?
I think most of the yeah, okay, sorry, yeah. So I think I've seen kind of two groups. So I will say that one group is starting to work in that space, and they know that that they're doing it, but they're trying to figure out actually kind of how, right? Like there's a lot of like, we need AI. And then everybody's like, and so they're trying to figure out how best to put that into their strategic plan. I will say that the other issue that I see with the leadership is saying we need this AI and putting a lot of pressure on the lower levels to implement this right away. The lower levels are coming and talking to us and saying they don't know that this is impossible. Like we're being asked to do things that can't be turned around that quickly, or that, and I'm thinking about a symposium I was at that was specifically, it was a lot of sports related companies. And this was a big conversation topic, not, I think because it was sports, but just because they started talking about it, that they're being asked to use all of these tools that just are on the market without kind of knowing what's going on. Like the pressure is too much, all right, on these lower levels to implement this too quickly. So it's either the CEO's just saying do it, but not spending enough time, right? Like thinking about that and not hearing what that middle manager layer, right, is saying back. Or we see some CEOs who are coming back, thinking very carefully. Maybe they're moving a little bit slowly, but they're doing it from like a cautious, more conservative plan. But they are reaching out to lots of think tanks and to partners, to educational institutions, et cetera, and thinking about what's the best way to do that, which, I mean, this is an example of a great forum. I'll just kind of finish on this. A great forum to get those kinds of strategic ideas and think about how you can innovate. So I'm just trying, what I would like is that version I said where the CEOs are just jamming it kind of without any thought. I'll say that loosely, or not thinking about what's happening down here. We'd like to avoid that, right? And we'd like to have a more well thought out strategic plan that involves input from all of the layers of the employees. And again, I'll say the best AI ideas I've ever heard actually are from people in the enterprises who do not actually work in AI. So I just want to kind of leave you with that. Yeah. And we're,
So
and hope you enjoy the rest of the forum.
What? Yeah, I know there's a lot of interest in questions, but I know we're a little bit behind schedule. So, but we're about to go into a break. So hopefully, maybe some of these conversations keep going. So I want to thank Rebecca. You've been
No, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.